Hello, welcome back to another video, and in this video I'm going to be discussing top 5 beginner mistakes, beginner composter mistakes that people might do as they're beginning to start their first worm bin, vermicomposting bin. And yeah, let's get right into it. Okay, at number 5, I would say feeding your worms, your new worms, your old worms, any type of worms that you have, the wrong food. So an example of this is citrus, right? So oranges, limes, lemons, things like that, acidic food, dairy products, yogurt, milk, cheese, and also like things like that, grain, usually things like rice, the worms don't like to eat. But also, if you don't know, just search it up on Google or just put it in your worm bin anyways. See what happens, maybe wait a week, maybe wait 2 weeks. See if the worms aren't eating it. Probably I wouldn't put it back into the worm bin, but it's up to you. Okay, at number 4, we have bad weather. So for me, I live in a place that's relatively dry and warm. We get rain sometimes, but it never really gets cold, never really below like 70 or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but so I usually keep my worms outside, and like I have lids. They're not just opened just in case of rain. I have lids, but if you live somewhere in like really cold, really rainy, you're getting lots of snow, you might want to put them inside. Make sure they're warm, somewhere insulated. Or just get like better bins, more insulated bins. Other than me, I just have hard plastic bins, so it doesn't really keep in like heat or coldness very well. But I don't really truly find that a problem. But if you live in somewhere where that could be a problem, just make sure your worms are good, they're happy, and they're not drenched. Okay, at number 3, we have too much moisture. So if you're watering your worms, you find you're watering your worms a lot. You also find that maybe there's a lot of flies, a lot of rotting food, and your worms aren't very happy. Also, maybe if you have air holes in the bottom of your bin, where I have, so that your worms don't suffocate, and those are constantly like dripping out water, you might want to water your worms less, because your worms can drown, and they will drown if you water them too much, and it'll make them gross, and they won't be happy. Okay, at number 2, we have something I just briefly touched on, suffocating your worms. You got to make sure. You can see in my worm bins, I've drilled holes into the sides, and I also have some on the bottom, so that the worms get enough air. You want to make sure they're getting enough air so that all of the bin, the top, the bottom, the sides, everything is getting enough air, and the worms aren't suffocating and dying, because that would be very bad. And finally, at number 1, we have overfeeding your worms. You got to make sure your worms don't have too much food, too much shredded paper. You got to make sure they're happy, because if you do overfeed them, then your worms, they'll get suffocated, and they will start dying. There'll be lots of bugs that can be harmful to your worms. It could be harder to, get air circulation. You might have to water it more, and it would just overall be the worst possible scenario for your worms. So you got to make sure you're feeding them. I feed them about once a week. It depends on the size of your worm bin, but really, whatever you really find working for you, you make sure you don't feed them too much. Okay, and finally, at the end of the video, shout out time. So I have 3 shout-outs to give, and if you want a shout-out, just comment, subscribe, like the video if you want, but subscribe, comment, hey, I subscribed, and you will have a chance at getting a shout-out in the next video. So at number 1, we have someone named Nana's Worms and Garden, and I'll have everyone that's shouted out in the link in the description. So we have Nana's Worms and Garden, and next we have someone named Theuns Koch. I hope I said that right, and everyone's name will be right there in the corner. And then third and finally, we will have someone named Gardening with Barchuckin. So he's also another YouTube channel, so huge shout out and thank you to him for subscribing. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and yeah, thank you for watching.